So just looking into certain things that we see continue to happen in the country as we look at the state of things and how we ought to deal with them. And how we ought to deal with them. One of these things is that people say, well, the voice of the people must come through. The voice of the people must be heard. The voice of the people then must be exercised through the ballot that's coming next August, etc., etc. The voice of the people seems to not be a factor to the people who currently hold the reins of power, because at least on 2 occasions in the last 1 week, the voice of the people has been kind of crumpled up and thrown into the dustbin, where the president said very clearly, I allowed this, I made the decision. So in case you were wondering who allowed them, it was me. Secondly, the CS in Parliament, interestingly enough, before the people who make the law, said we don't need citizenship. Remember, public participation is a fundamental part of the new constitution. Yeah. But he basically said, Constitution who? Sit over there in the corner. We don't need participation here. We took the decision unilaterally. How does that look for the people who now you're telling to bring their voice next
My answer to Duale and the president is simple. If you don't need to consult us, don't use our money. Okay? As long as you're using your own money, it's okay. Go ahead. But they do whatever. As long as it's the president's personal money and Duale's money. But as long as you intend to use our taxes, our money, our policemen, our resources, our vehicles, anything that belongs to the state, then we must be involved and we must be consulted. So it is actually okay to wake up and say you don't need to consult. And that is on matters relating to your house and your family. But on matters relating to this country, on matters that have got to do with our resources, on matters that have got to do with our taxes, on matters that have got to do with our health. Remember, this is not Duale's health at risk. It is the health of the nation at risk. Then you must consult us. And sometimes they tend to think that because hatujaenda maandamano, we are not angry enough. In our hearts of hearts, sisi tunaandamana. Hata tukiwa tumeketi hapa tunaandamana. And we feel the pinch and we are angry at this administration. It's just that we don't have the energy to go and on the streets every other day when they commit these atrocious things that they do. But let them know that we are disappointed with them, we are dissatisfied with them, we are angry with them, and the decisions they are making are not for our own benefit. I wish he was saying, I have decided that every school now should have extra classrooms and I don't need to consult you. That's a good thing. It's for the benefit of the nation. But when you're bringing us something that, by the way, what President William Ruto and Aden Duale have done, there is no difference between that and committing genocide. This is a presidency that is committing genocide upon its own citizens. When you see how fast Ebola spreads and how disastrous that thing is, and how many human beings it can potentially take out within a very short time, then you realize that there's no difference between what they are doing and a man who comes with a machine gun and just kills the citizens. Because this is a person taking the fastest, most painful, most ugly, most dehumanizing way of killing citizens and bringing it upon the nation.
Even as ugly as that,
where you guys are making noise.
Even as ugly as that looks, I must still ask the question. I've asked this and I'm still unable to reconcile to an answer. Why the insistence? It's not about caring for another nation's sake. It's not about that. Because then I would have to ask, what about the Kenyans who are in the DRC who may be affected? Who's taking care of them? It's not about that, because then I also want to know how many other facilities, where are they? Apart from the one in Laikipia, where are they? They've not been able to tell us until today where they are. So what else? There's something beneath that we still don't seem to be able to get. What is that thing for this insistence to be so heavy?
We are already insisting that Kenya is losing 30,000 Kenyans to malaria every year and 10,000 Kenyans to pneumonia every year. And 25,000 Kenyans to cancer every year. I think this is where our focus would have been on. That, 60 years after independence, we are still losing people to malaria. Then we have now a pandemic that we don't need being brought upon us. And it's being heavily pushed up down our throats. And we have to accept whether we like it or not. Nanyuki Air Base does not belong to the president. It's a state resource. It belongs to all of us collectively. And therefore, it should be run with the benefit of Kenyans in mind. Remember, this is where we see our jets are put In case of an invasion in the country, that's where they are supposed to respond from. So should we compromise that and then every other person there has got Ebola? Would our pilots deal with Ebola, or would they be dealing with an external threat to our existence? And sometimes even also, I keep saying I wish, sometimes I read, wanasema ndege inayopita mbele yako mtukufu rais. Then you Google about that plane. And then you realize that some of the countries we've been insulting, like Russia, that one can only be used for crop irrigation around there. So I think let us be a nation that means well for its people. And you can only do that by making choices that are people-centered. People first. People first. People first.
Fanya Mambo, based off what the Constitution's requirements are, that public participation must be held, must be an exercise that is undertaken on any decision that is being made. And you're hearing individuals saying, we will not do that. I agreed, And in the event that Ebola gets to infect citizens in the country based off an exercise that never went through public participation, then everybody else in that chain who agreed for that facility to be held there, for Kenyans to be affected, then must be held liable in accordance to the law?
My thinking is that when we take over government next year, and we sure will, we need to sue these people, prosecute them for these crimes, because this is a crime. This is criminal when you come with genocidal ideas against a nation. Because how else do you explain when you bring a catastrophe that can destroy a whole country?
Yeah.
The Americans have studied Ebola so much. They are so threatened. They are so afraid of it. They don't want it in their soil. So bad is it to them, to the extent that they are even giving travel advisories against those countries that are even coming close to Ebola. So not only do they have a problem with their own, and the way Americans protect their citizens, they have a problem with their own citizens landing in the US, having come from the DRC, because they could take Ebola there. And then you have a country that does not have the means, that doesn't have the kind of hospitals that the US has, inheriting that thing and saying it. So when we take over government, one of the first things we want to do is to tell them, because you said no public participation, and because you said you have made the decision, let us then say, therefore, it is your decision. And then we charge you in court and say it was never a public decision, it was your decision, so they should take personal responsibility for it. Yeah.
So as we get into the politics, because all of these things contribute to a mindset that will come to play out when people go to cast their vote in 2027, or one would hope that all of these things are taken into consideration. One of the issues that has come out for a lot of people clearly is that there is lack of knowledge about the things that should actually be happening in country when it comes to state officers and possibly elected officials. The Speaker of the National Assembly was very busy this past weekend talking about garnering support for 2032 for himself. Unless I heard him wrongly.
Yes.
Garnering support for himself in 2032. Last I checked, he is not in a position whereby he can be politicking for anything because he's got a job to do. Does this paint a picture of where Kenya is at the moment, when certain things just seem to go? Court orders, be damned, constitution, put that in a corner, or business as usual?
You see, we stopped taking Wetangula seriously. All of us, even his own people in parliament don't take him seriously.
How so? Why?
Because he's not in touch with what Kenyans are saying. Kenyans are saying that the reign of this administration comes to an end in 2027 at the ballot.
Yeah.
He's saying that he's campaigning for presidency in 2032. Because according to his lostness, he thinks William Ruto is going to be president again in 2027. He's so lost in that gap. That's why he's now campaigning for 2032. Because to him, it's a foregone conclusion. He thinks that William Ruto will win again in 2027. So, and we are telling him he's lost it. Because in 2027, for all we know and all we are concerned as Kenyans, is we are taking William Ruto home through the ballot. And we have always prayed that we have that chance to, wache wanasema watakarabati, we fill those ballots with our votes that are an anti-Ruto vote. Just telling him, look here, we wanted to show you that you were elected democratically and we have removed you democratically. So that he can hand over power peacefully. And that's going to be the hallmark of his legacy. We are not going to remember anything else. The only thing we pray is that he hands over power peacefully. Yeah.
So so beyond the what you call disillusionment, should this actually be happening? We don't because somebody welcomed him when he was out having this conversation with I don't know how many numbers of sectors of people. Somebody welcomed him, but in that position, he shouldn't actually be there, or those things don't matter anymore.
The people he was addressing are part of the 10,000, are part of the 30,000 who are dying of malaria every year. The people he was addressing are part of the ones whose children are in congested classrooms. The people he was addressing are part of the ones who've been given 95 shillings as capitation for school. The people who he was addressing are part of the ones who you've seen more than 180,000 children are not in school.
Yes.
Those ones were part of it. The people he was addressing are part of those, luckily they're in the rural areas, who are eating 1 meal a day like an animal. So those people had other bigger problems than Wetangula becoming president in 2032. If he had taken time to ask them, what is your problem? They would have told him that nowadays we are not able to feed our families well. They would have told them SHA is not working. They would have told him very many things that are close to their hearts. But Mudavadi is talking about 2032 to people who are not even sure they'll be alive in 2032 because they have medical bills and they have their own people in hospital and they have hospitals that don't even have drugs to start with. And he's talking of 2032.
Fanya Mambo, why is it that as Kenya, we are easy to let nonsense and disrespect of rule of law continue? Where am I going with this? You find the law clearly stipulates that as a state officer, you are not supposed to campaign. You are a political. It's the reason why you find the experts who got to office had to resign from their political positions for them to get there. But you find these are the very same individuals who we find in political rallies donning political party colors, speaking on behalf of political parties. Yet we are in a country where we say it is a progressive constitution, we have the ODPP, we have the EACC, but they never seem to act on these issues. Why are we letting a lot of nonsense pass?
You see, you cannot separate this government from that kind of nonsense because this is what people voted for, unfortunately. They voted for an administration that had no agenda other than to make the lives of Kenyans difficult, to loot money, and to amass wealth. And that's what they are doing. So they are even surprised that you are asking them questions. They're wondering, we thought it's our time to eat, because primarily that's what they went there for. And therefore, you are making noise at them when they are eating. You are disturbing them when they are looting from you. These people have got no interest whatsoever in helping this nation in any way, shape or form.
But what does that speak to institutions that we pay for to do that job? EACC on ethics. We talk about ODPP on the respect of law. They are quiet in all this. Does it mean that they are as well mouthpieces for the bad manners?
I don't think that they have a choice. I think if you went to EACC today, the problems they have received in these 5 years of this Ruto administration, they have never received in 20 years. Do you know everything that could go wrong is going wrong? At the same time, I mean, people call me every day because they see me going to TV. People send me messages every day about things that are going wrong. But I'll be you guys, I only have one life and I only have one mouth and I can only be in one place at one time. And I can only carry 2 or 3 messages in a day. I don't get anything less than 15 suggestions of things that are terrible that are happening that I should talk about on a daily basis. So this administration took a list of all the good things they need to do. They tore it down. Then they took a list of all the terrible things they need to do. And then they asked, can these things get even worse? And that's what they are working on. That's what they're implementing every day. And that's where we have the challenge. So in as much as we want to address EACC, the police, everything, how do you address all these things? The capacity is limited. Yeah, the people who are bringing bad stuff are too many, and the people who are supposed to resolve the bad stuff are too few. Yeah,
is it enough to then say that then people who believe that they can come in and change the situation should then put themselves up for election? Is that enough, or is that one way to then be able to solve some of these issues?
I've been telling Kenyans there are 289 constituencies remaining. Dagoretti South nilichukua hiyo msikuja kunisumbua huko. So, these 289 constituencies are waiting for us. And I think it's incumbent upon us to start saying, who are the right people we are going to put in this 289? I keep saying there's a 5 to 10% of parliament that should come back. You know, people who have shown that they have the moral credulity to run the nation, and people who mean well, and people who are fighting for us. You Kenyans know them and you can see them. But then the rest of the lot needs to be swept out. And parliament is where the action is. I am telling Kenyans, hata ukipoteza hizi zingine, let us not get parliament wrong, and let us not get the county assemblies wrong. We can't afford to make a mistake at parliament and at county assemblies. If we get those institutions right, this nation will go in the right direction.
But Kenyans are asking the question, even in 2022, they trusted. They trusted that using the charters that they sat together with the UDA government, they trusted that those charters would be implemented.
Trust is not a strategy.
They were sold ideas and a promise that they believed in. And right now, everybody else who's coming in is as well selling a promise that they would do better. How then should Kenyans measure who to trust and who not to trust?
I've always told Kenyans, don't judge me on the mistakes of your ex. Because you'll come and say, oh, my ex was a terrible man. Oh, my ex. So now you don't want to love me. You don't want to trust me because your ex was bad to you. Why are you punishing me for the mistakes of your ex? You know, assess me as me. Nimekuja nimejitetea kama Fanya Mambo. I've said nice things to you. I have taken you for dinner. I am serious about engaging you. I want to marry you. I want to have a relationship with you. I want us to have children. And then you keep telling me that your ex was bad. Your ex also lied. I was not your ex. I am me. Now take me for me. And that's what I'm telling even the people of Dagoretti South. You know your ex, even your current boyfriend is mistreating you, saying bad things, you know, they are not in touch with reality and so on and so forth. But please, I am not your current boyfriend. Mimi nakukatia fresh. You know, Mr. Right has come. So don't punish Mr. Right because Mr. Wrong was there. Just be nice to me because I'm being nice to you. Let's give me a chance to come and try. We start a new relationship. Na tukikaka usiku unanikumbusha, even my ex used to do this. No, I mean, be nice to me. Let's have an opportunity to start afresh. You know, you can be happy. Hata kama ufikisha 40 years, we know. Kenya is now 60 something. You can still be loved. Kuna maisha iko hapo mbele imetungojea.
Many people would say that maybe the president also was in the same situation. He never had an opportunity to be president before and says, okay, well, the same thing that you're putting him, saying that don't treat me like that, is the same way that folks are saying, well, you know, give him a chance.
I am happy that people have stopped asking whether I stand a chance. I don't know whether you realize now, nowadays everywhere I go on stations, they're not asking me that you don't, they're asking me. Now because we have decided we are going to trust you, give us an assurance that you will do the right thing. And that's why I'm here to tell Kenyans, I think we need to make a covenant. And I need to tell you one thing. From where I am sitting as Fanya Mambo Kinuthia, do you know that we don't even need a brand new agenda for this country? If we say resist, the agenda is to resist the temptation to import 500,000 metric tons of rice. That alone saves 100,000 jobs in Moya. Resist the temptation to import sugar. That alone saves 400,000 jobs in the Western Belt. Resist the temptation to sell our oil from Turkana and just mine it here. That again creates so many jobs. There was people who had come here, they wanted to make Turkana a casino city. These are things you may not know. Wali sumbuliwa, my friend. They gave up on that idea. There are people who came here, they wanted to have an ammonia generating plant to do fertilizer. Those guys are in Angola. No, they are in Zambia, sorry. They're in Zambia now. There are people who came here, they wanted to come with a Formula 1 truck. They are doing it in Rwanda.
Not this one for
Macha here.
There are people who came here, yeah, and they wanted to set up cement. You know Dangote history. That thing is in Rwanda. If we just resist the temptation to make life difficult for people without even doing something new, watu watakuwa naona haya kampuni ya simiti imekuja, I don't know, there's a Formula 1 track. There are so many people. There are people who came here and I have met and they were so mad, who wanted to come up with a garbage recycling plant to, you know, a garbage plant for the generation of electricity. They were asked for tons of money. It ended up not happening. But they would have been selling our garbage today, selling and earning from garbage. But guess what? People were too greedy. They did not allow them to flourish. So just by resisting the temptation to make the lives of Kenyans difficult, imagine you can run this nation. Anything you see happening in Rwanda started here. I was in the UK the other day. I was taken to a go down. I was shown over 2,000 wheelchairs, walking aids, and crutches. I took that videos on my TikTok. So they first took me to a small garage, and then they took me to the warehouse. The warehouse I was not allowed to film, but the small garage they showed me. After every so long, people who die in the UK or people who recover and so on, those wheelchairs are put together somewhere. Kenyans put them together, put in a container. They wanted to come and donate to Kenyans who need wheelchairs here. They were so frustrated at the port, they paid $1 million in taxation. Remember, they are coming to help.
Yeah.
By the time those things were getting to the needy, it had become so expensive for them. So what are Kenyans doing in the UK? They are collecting that stuff, they are filling it in containers, they are sending it to Rwanda. Through our port. Yes, the Rwandese are receiving them, they are doing an itemized list, and then they are going and putting them. The ministry that is in charge of all those people who have disabilities and everything, I think it's a department under the Ministry of Social Services in Rwanda. They are giving those wheelchairs to all the needy. Here, an old man is walking with 2 mikwajos. I got walking aids in the UK that I wanted to bring here. Those people were crying tears. They were telling me, Fanya Mambo, we can't get these things to your country. So what we do is we collect them to go to Rwanda. Because if they don't go to Rwanda and the warehouse is full, they are crushed. And so a sick person here anabebwa na wheelbarrow kama gunia akipelekwa hospitali. Yet those wheelchairs would have helped. But because KRA and all these people are so keen on making money, those things never come here. They end up in Rwanda. So if we resist the temptation to make the lives of our people incredibly hard, I want you to go to my TikTok. Those videos are there. I felt so bad. I could see them. I took photos of myself with those walking aids and everything. And I remember hata hapa Dagoretti South, I know one man anendanga na mikuajo mbili na watu wa Dagoretti South wanamjua. That guy should have had a capushing walking aid. And they are there. And the Britons are ready to give us those things for free. A whole container load. I was even telling them, simunikubalishe basi tu nikuje nazo, nipatie Rotary Club or any other charitable trust, and then we come up with a way to ensure that they are not being sold. They are only being given to the needy Kenyans. My friend, you will write proposals for 3 years from here to the I don't know where. So that is the problem, that this country could progress. But we have sadists, literally sadists, who would prefer that a person continues to be pushed on a wheelchair. I know a lady who brought them, and they ended up in Nyeri, but she paid 1 million shillings for bringing wheelchairs. Akasema next time, never. So anaulizanga Rwanda, are you ready? There's a consignment coming. Those ones receive. Even now, Burundi is being given. And they go through where? Here. And our sick people are on what? Wheelbarrows. But simulichagua wheelbarrow.
You know, any leadership is supposed to be pro-people. Why? Because everyone who's there is there to serve the people. We're here today talking about the manyoka that we see on the streets. But the manyoka is because it has been allowed to be there. Because on this show, we just said we do not have public service vehicles. We have private individuals offering public transport services. We do not have public that is owned by the government that would take people from one point to the other. That there is no standard that even manages those. And when you top up that together with what it is you're saying, one asks the question, the government that we have today is seemingly not pro-people. Therefore, how do we fix that, Fanya Mambo? Because I hear you speak and you're talking about how to serve Mwananchi, how to make Mwananchi be front and center. That when it comes to taxation, we are not taxing you to a pulp that you have nothing to take care of yourself. That when it comes to offering public service, I am not on private facility, but forcing you to be on a public system that I do not trust myself. How do we fix that, Fanya Mambo? Is our political system so bad that it would take the hand of God slapping people literally for it work?
Let me give you a simple example. Today we are worried about finance bill and we are worried about budget. Kenya receives 2.5 million tourists a year. Kenya makes 144 billion shillings from tourism every year. Kenya has a population of about 55 million people. Now, France has a population of 70 to 80 million people. They get 120 million tourists per year. So you can imagine how much they make. They get more tourists than their population. What are those guys going to see? The Eiffel Tower.
Yes.
And some funny things.
And the bridge with the padlock.
We who have got one of the 7 wonders of the world, the wild beast migration, have allowed a moron, a creature without a brain, to build a hotel on the path of those wild beasts. And now they are not able to move nicely. And that could change a phenomenon. There's a country in Asia where they take people and put them on small boats at night. Then they go and switch off the lights. Do you know what those guys are seeing? Glowworms.
Bugs.
Yeah.
Glowworms.
Yeah.
Zikiwaka hivi. And they are making more money from tourism than we do. If only we fixed our tourism in this country, we would make not less than 5 trillion shillings a year from tourism. Hiyo si pesa tuna tax mwananchi. We are just saying, how can we start earning? A flight from Wilson to Masai Mara is more expensive than a flight from from Nairobi to Dubai. So if we fix our tourism, if we just sit and just put common sense in our tourism and start asking, where in a third world country, why are we making a tourist pay 30,000 per night in a hotel? Many of them will not come here because when I went to the UK, I lived in a hotel and I would pay the equivalent of 10,000 shillings a night. So if I can pay 10,000 shillings a night in a 5-star hotel in the UK, why would I come to Africa and pay 30,000 a night? We must fix our tourism. There are so many things we can do to make sure that Kenya earns at least, hiyo ni kuearn, hakuna kutax.
Yeah.
We were selling tea to Sudan. They were giving us 5 billion. In our wisdom or lack thereof, and I believe it is lack thereof, we decided to host rebels at KICC. You know, you are hugging rebels, you are hosting them, you are being nice to them. We lost tea business worth 5 billion shillings.
And that agreement has never come back into force.
And you know what? Now, those are farmers who've lost livelihoods and opportunities to earn. So it's just the carelessness. I don't think we should be taxing Kenyans. That is what I'm trying to answer. I think if we fix tourism, we should be asking ourselves, if tea gave us 10 shillings last year as a country, how can we make 15 or 20 shillings from tea this year? If coffee gave us 11 bob, how can Eves give us 23 bob? You know? And we start asking ourselves, 60 years after independence, why are we importing toothpick? Why are we importing underwear? Mwiko ya ugali, enda utafute ile supermarket, it's made in China. Mwiko. It's not even their staple food, but they're making a mwiko for us. So if we are making this finance bill, I was hoping to see a proposal on the floor of the House that all imported mwiko, duty mereziwa to 1,000%. Because when I was in Standard 7, I made a mwiko for art and craft. Okay? Then the next thing is duty on toothpicks has been raised to 2,000%. So that Kenyans make their toothpicks or rot in their teeth. So those are the things I was hoping to see in the finance bill. How do we start taxing heavily, very punitively, those things that Kenyans can make? And then our industry will begin to grow. Because it takes one idiot to import a 40-foot container of toothpicks. But it would take very many Kenyans to make the number of toothpicks that would fill one 40-foot container. So I cheerfully submit to us that what we need right now is a shift in the way we are thinking and start asking, can we do government as business? If Paris is getting 120 million tourists a year to come and see a tower, when you think of how much we have, kuna watu wanaenda kuona, you know, when we were small, global, wacha niwaambie na Kikuyu, togunyo, tunawakanga hivi, right, you know, light, alafu kanazima kwa giza. There are people who are paying money to go on a boat and watch those. God has blessed us immensely as a nation. The only thing is we haven't done is we have not chosen those people who have good brains and taken them to parliament and in decision-making positions. We have this very serious addiction for dimwits.
There are solutions that have been given even in this conversation this morning. And the call is for a lot of people that, Fanya Mambo, you continue to speak out about some of these things that we discussed this morning. There's a lot of work to be done. And there's a lot of work to be done in the minds of people, also in the enactment of some of these things. But thank you for being here.
Actually, I have a plea.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm making to everybody out there who can help me. I never usually ask for help from Kenyans. But those 2,000 wheelchairs And everything else in the UK is still available. They told me they'll hold it for a month from when I left. I left the UK on the 25th. They are holding it in trust for me for a month. If there's anybody who can help me to become the consignee on this side, or, we have a way around this rubbish system, and then we find a way to make sure that we go around every poor family to give them. I'm ready to sacrifice my time and energy to go back to the UK, to jazz a container, to Ilete. And then we go to the very needy. Some children on a wheelbarrow, some people who are, those walking aids are very many. And we need them to bring them here. I don't know how we shall, but let's reach us to one another. Let us find a way. Mimi nita sacrifice nirudi huko tena. Kama tunaweza leta hiyo container and it becomes the only thing I have done for Kenya this year, me I'll be a very happy man. Nijue there is a person sitting on a wheelchair because we made it happen. There's someone pushing and walking aid because we made it happen. It's quite a tricky environment within which we can work, but I'm ready to work with every right-thinking person to see to it that that consignment gets here. Na wale wanauza hizo vitu mimi sijakuja kucompete na nyinyi. I'm not interested. I thank God I'm on my 2 feet. I don't want to ride one. And I pray I never live to ride on one. All I'm saying is there's someone who needs this stuff.
True.
And
Indeed.
he needs to come here. Yeah.
A good way to end on this morning, and thank you for then being able to join in this conversation with us, and of course looking to moments where we can continue this conversation and speak candidly on some of these matters. Thank you very much for being here.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.